Okay, so imagine this for a second. You get home from work, you walk up to your front door, you unlock it, you step inside, and, everything looks normal. The living room is how you left it. TV's off, cat's asleep, windows are closed. You even check your security panel on the wall. And the little green light, it's glowing steady, all systems normal, you feel safe, you assume you're alone.
But what if that panel was lying?
Exactly. What if someone was living in your attic, but not just living there, they've actually rewired the whole system. The motion sensors ignore them. The cameras are just looping a video of an empty hallway. They're, I don't know, eating your food, listening to your calls, but every single tool you have to check for an intruder is telling you everything is fine.
That is a genuinely terrifying thought.
What's this?
It's the setup for a horror movie. But in the digital world, this isn't fiction. It's a very specific and very dangerous reality.
It is. And today we're doing a deep dive into that invisible enemy of the cyber world. We are talking about rootkits.
And this is one of those topics that I think really changes how you look at your computer. Once you understand what a rootkit is actually doing, you never quite trust that little green system normal light the same way again.
I have to say, prepping for this it was a journey. We are basing today's deep dive entirely on the educational materials provided by WeCyberYou, and I want to officially welcome everyone to this episode of the WeCyberYou Unlocked podcast.
The documentation from WeCyberYou is incredibly thorough on this. They don't just, explain what these things are. They really get into the mechanics of the deception itself, which I found just fascinating.
So let's start at the beginning. I think most of us have a general idea of malware. You download a sketchy file, maybe your computer slows down, you get some pop-ups or
the big ransom note.
Right, the worst case. But the WeCyberYou material makes a really strong distinction here. A rootkit isn't just malware, it's something else entirely.
Right. It's a functional distinction. Most malware, it's like a smash and grab. It wants to break in, cause a lot of noise, steal something, lock your files. It's loud. A rootkit it's different. Its primary design philosophy comes down to two things: privilege and stealth.
Okay, let's unpack that. Privilege and stealth. That sounds like the title of a spy novel.
It does, doesn't it? But in computing, privilege just means access rights. The WeCyberYou definition is really clear here. It says a rootkit is designed to gain and maintain administrator-level or root access to a computer.
So it's not just a guest. It has the keys to the entire kingdom.
It basically becomes a landlord. That's the privilege part.
Yeah.
The stealth part is where the tech gets, scary. A rootkit is explicitly designed to hide its own existence. From you, from your security software, from everything. It isn't trying to burn the house down. It's trying to live in the walls for as long as possible without anyone noticing.
That's the part that I got stuck on when I was reading the source material. I mean, I consider myself pretty tech savvy. I know how to open Task Manager on Windows or, Activity Monitor on a Mac. If a program is running, it has to be on that list, right? Computers are logical. They can't just forget to list a process.
You would think so. But you have to remember how your computer's working under the hood. When you open Task Manager, that program isn't like physically counting the electrons in the CPU. It's just asking the operating system, Windows, for example, for a report, and sends a request that said, hey, Windows, please list all the processes you're running.
Okay, that makes sense. A request for information.
Well, a rootkit intercepts that request. The source material calls this hooking. The rootkit actually modifies the core system tools. So when Task Manager asks for the list, the rootkit grabs the data first, takes out a little red pen, crosses its own name off, and then hands that edited list back to Task Manager.
Wow. So Task Manager isn't broken, it's just being fed lies.
Exactly. It's digital gaslighting. You're looking at a screen that says 0 threats found. But the very tool running the scan has been compromised by the threat itself. It can hide files, it can hide registry entries, it can even hide its own network traffic.
Wait, so you could be uploading gigabytes of stolen data to a server somewhere, and you check your network monitor and it just shows 0 traffic.
If the rootkit is sophisticated enough, yes. It filters its own packets out of the report before you ever see them.
That is deeply unsettling. It really undermines the whole idea of trusting what your computer tells you. Now, the WeCyberYou guide breaks this down even further. It turns out not all rootkits are created equal. There's a sort of hierarchy of danger here, isn't there?
There is. It all depends on how deep they manage to bury themselves. The source text outlines 5 main levels, and they range from, let's say, bad to absolute nightmare.
I love a good hierarchy of doom. Let's walk through these because I think it helps listeners really grasp how complex this gets. So level 1 is user mode rootkits.
Right. User mode is the shallow end of the pool. In computer architecture, we talk about rings. Ring 3 is where all your normal applications live, your browser, Word, video games. User mode rootkits run right there in that same space.
Alongside your normal apps.
Correct. They work by intercepting calls between applications. They're still dangerous, they can steal data, but because they're running at the same level as everything else, they are generally easier to detect. Your antivirus usually has higher privileges, so it can look down and spot them.
Okay, so that's the amateur burglar. He's hiding behind the curtains, but if you turn on the lights, you'll see him. But then we step down a level to kernel mode rootkits. And this is where the tone of the WeCyberYou material got a lot more serious.
This is ring 0, the kernel. For anyone who isn't a software engineer, the kernel is basically the brain of your operating system. It's the absolute core. It's the bridge between all your software and the physical hardware. It tells the hard drive when to spin. It tells the screen what to display.
So if user mode is the lobby of the building, the kernel is the main security control room with all the camera feeds.
That is the perfect analogy. And if a rootkit gets kernel-level access, it effectively becomes the operating system. It has the highest possible privileges. It can literally modify the fundamental laws of the computer's reality.
And this is why they're so hard to remove, right?
Exactly. I mean, think about it. If your antivirus relies on the kernel to tell it what files exist on the disk, but the rootkit controls the kernel, well, your antivirus is fighting a rigged battle. But there is a catch. The source does mention that kernel mode rootkits are risky for the attackers too.
Risky how?
Stability. The kernel is a very, very delicate environment. If the malware is poorly written and it tries to hook into a process and fails, it doesn't just crash an app, it crashes the whole computer.
The blue screen of death?
That's the one.
So if my computer suddenly starts crashing all the time, it might not just be old hardware. It could be a clumsy burglar tripping over the wires in the control room.
It's definitely a symptom to watch out for.
Okay, so we've got the kernel. That's bad. But then I read about bootloader rootkits, and I realized it gets even worse. This isn't just about where they hide, it's about when they attack.
This is a timing attack. The bootloader is this tiny little piece of software that runs the instant you press the power button on your computer. Its only job is to find your operating system and load it into memory.
So if the rootkit infects the bootloader,
Then the rootkit loads before the operating system does.
that is wild.
Think about it. Before your login screen appears, before your antivirus software even initializes, the rootkit is already active and running. It loads itself into memory first, and then allows Windows to load on top of it. The whole environment is compromised before the defenses even wake up.
It's like the intruder is already in the house making coffee before you've even opened your eyes in the morning.
Precisely. And because it loaded first, it can patch the operating system in real time as it's loading to make sure it stays hidden.
Okay, I am thoroughly creeped out. But we haven't hit the bottom of the barrel yet. We have to talk about the nuclear scenario that the text mentioned. Firmware rootkits.
Yeah, this is the stuff that keeps security professionals up at night.
Yeah.
This goes beyond software. Firmware is the code that is hard-coded into your actual hardware chips. Your motherboard's BIOS or UEFI, your network card, even the little controller on your hard drive.
And the critical distinction here, this was a huge aha moment for me raising this, is that this code doesn't live on your hard drive.
Correct. And that changes everything when it comes to cleanup. So let's say you get a nasty virus. You decide to scorch the earth. You wipe your hard drive completely, reformat it, reinstall Windows from a brand new, clean USB stick. You feel safe.
But if it's a firmware rootkit,
You are wasting your time. The moment you turn that computer back on, the infected chip on the motherboard wakes up, sees that fresh, clean hard drive, and just injects the malware right back into it. It survives a full system wipe. You could physically replace the hard drive, and you would still be infected.
that feels incredibly futuristic. I mean, is this something our listeners actually need to worry about day to day, or is this just for spies and nation states?
Well, historically, it has been the domain of state-sponsored actors. Writing firmware malware is incredibly difficult. You need to know the exact hardware architecture. But the WeCyberYou material warns that these tools are starting to trickle down. They're becoming more accessible. So it's rare, but it is very real.
And just to round out the list of horrors, there was one more type. Hypervisor rootkits.
The blue pill attack. This relies on virtualization. Modern processors can run virtual machines, basically simulated computers, inside your computer. A hypervisor rootkit installs itself as a hypervisor, and then it loads your entire operating system inside a virtual machine that it controls.
So you think you're running your computer, but you're actually just running a simulation of your computer that's being controlled by the malware.
Exactly. The rootkit is operating outside the matrix, just looking in. Your OS has absolutely no way of knowing it's being observed because, as far as it knows, it's interacting with real hardware. It's the ultimate stealth.
Okay, we've established these things are terrifyingly capable. They're invisible, they have the master keys, and they can survive a system wipe. So the big question is, how do they get in? Do I have to be doing something really sketchy to get one of these?
I wish that were true.
Mm-hmm.
But the delivery methods listed in the WeCyberYou notes are actually, well, they're pretty mundane. It's the same old story. Human error.
Let's run through the vectors. What are the most common ways this door gets opened?
Number one, as always, is phishing. You get an email, it looks like an invoice, a shipping notification, maybe a message from HR as an attachment. You click it,
And that attachment runs a script.
and it exploits a vulnerability to grab those admin privileges, and boom, it installs the rootkit. You might see a document open up so you think everything is fine, but the damage is already done.
What about downloading software?
Trojan horses. A massive vector. This is especially common with pirated software, cracked games, things like that. You think you're getting a free version of some expensive software. You install it, it works, you're happy. But the installer had a silent passenger.
So the price of free software was handing over the keys to your entire system.
Exactly. But it's not just pirated stuff. The source material highlights supply chain attacks, which are really scary. This is where attackers compromise a legitimate software vendor. So you download an official update for, say, your printer driver. It's totally legitimate, signed by the vendor. But the attackers have injected the rootkit into the update at the source.
That is the scariest one to me because you did everything right. You updated your official software from the official source and you still got hit.
It creates a massive trust issue. And lastly, we shouldn't forget physical access, the classic evil maid attack.
Sounds like a movie title.
It refers to someone like a maid in a hotel room or just a bad actor in an office who gets physical access to your laptop for just 5 minutes. They plug in a compromised USB drive, reboot the machine, and use a tool to flash the BIOS or install a bootloader rootkit.
So once they're in, what are they actually doing, besides just living rent-free in my processor?
The WeCyberYou guide categorizes the damage into 3 main buckets: theft, surveillance, and persistence. Theft is the obvious one. Passwords, credit card numbers, company secrets. They can deploy keyloggers that record every single key you press.
So they have my bank login before I even hit the enter key?
Correct. Surveillance is things like hijacking your microphone, your webcam, screen capturing. But persistence acting as a gateway, that's the real strategic goal. A rootkit is essentially a permanent hidden back door. So even if you patch the security hole they used to get in, the rootkit keeps a secret tunnel open for them.
They can rent your computer out to other criminals?
Exactly. They can turn your machine into a zombie to launch attacks on other people or sell access to your network on the dark web. You become a node in their criminal infrastructure.
This brings us to the most difficult part of today's conversation: detection and removal. The source material was pretty blunt about this. It basically said, if you think you have a rootkit, don't try to be a hero.
It did. The text explicitly states, removing them incorrectly can crash the system.
Why is that? Why can't I just run my antivirus and hit delete?
Because of that deep kernel integration we talked about.
Yeah.
If a rootkit has replaced a critical system file, let's say the file that handles how your keyboard talks to the CPU and your antivirus, just rips that file out.
Oh.
Well, now your keyboard doesn't talk to the CPU anymore. The system panics and crashes. It's like trying to remove a tumor that's wrapped itself around a major artery. You can't just cut it out without risking the patient.
So standard scans often miss them, and trying to remove them breaks the computer. What do we actually do? How do we even know they're there in the first place?
Detection requires specialized tools. You need tools that look at behavior, not just file signatures. We call this heuristic analysis. You look for discrepancies.
Like the lying about the file list example from earlier.
Exactly that. A specialized scanner might boot your computer from a clean USB drive so the infected OS isn't running, and then it scans the hard drive. It compares what it sees to what the OS claims is there. If the OS says, I have 50 files, but the scanner counts 51, you've just found the hidden one.
Okay, let's say the worst has happened. I ran a special scan. I found a kernel mode rootkit. The WeCyberYou guide suggests a solution that sounds like a major headache, but they call it the safest method.
The nuclear option. And honestly, in professional cybersecurity, this is often the standard procedure. You don't try to untangle the knot. You just cut the rope.
Walk us through the steps of a true cleanup, because I think a lot of people probably get this wrong.
Step 1 is backup. But you have to be paranoid. You can back up your documents, your photos, your text files, but you absolutely cannot back up program files, executables, or drivers.
Yeah.
You can't just clone your hard drive.
Because you'll just clone the rootkit with it.
You'll just bring it right back. So you handpick only the safe data. Step 2, wipe the system. And I don't mean dragging files to the trash. I mean properly formatting the drive, wiping the partitions.
Starting from zero.
Starting from zero. Step 3, reinstall the operating system.
And this is key. Reinstall from where?
From a trusted source. You can't use the system restore partition on your hard drive, because that could be infected too. You need a fresh USB installer that you get from Microsoft or Apple, created on a known clean computer.
And even after all that, if it's one of those firmware rootkits.
If you suspect a firmware attack, the nuclear option might include flashing the BIOS, rewriting the code on the motherboard chip, which is very technical and very risky, or in extreme cases, the advice is simply replace the hardware, buy a new computer.
I feel like we've painted a pretty grim picture here. I can practically hear our listeners unplugging their routers right now. But the goal of the WeCyberYou Unlocked podcast isn't to scare people, is to empower them. WeCyberYou provided some solid protection strategies. So let's pivot to defense. How do we keep these things out of the attic in the first place?
The good news is that while the malware is sophisticated, the prevention is actually standard best practice. You just have to be really disciplined about it.
So what's at the top of the list?
Updates. It sounds boring, I know. Update your computer. But remember, rootkits often need a security hole to get that initial administrator access.
Yeah.
Software vendors find these holes and they issue patches to close them. If you delay your update for a week, you're leaving that window open for a whole week.
Except patch early, patch often. It's just locking the back door.
Precisely. Strategy number 2, privilege management. We talked about how rootkits want that admin access. Well, don't give it to them so easily. For your daily work, browsing the web, checking email, you shouldn't be logged in as an administrator. You should use a standard user account.
That makes sense. If I accidentally click a bad link while I'm on a standard account, the malware hits a wall. It asks for an admin password to install. I say no, and the attack just fails.
Exactly. It contains the blast radius.
The source material also emphasized a specific feature called Secure Boot. Can you explain what that does?
Yes, this is a crucial defense against those bootloader rootkits we discussed. Secure Boot is a feature in your computer's UEFI firmware. What it does is it checks the digital signature of every single piece of software that tries to boot up.
It's like checking ID at the door.
It is. It looks at the bootloader and says, was this actually signed by Microsoft or Apple? If a rootkit has tampered with it, the signature won't match, and Secure Boot will just refuse to start the computer. It stops the infection from ever loading.
So everyone listening should probably go check their BIOS settings and make sure Secure Boot is enabled.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental layer of trust for the hardware itself. And finally, just be smart about what you click. It sounds repetitive, but avoiding pirated software and being suspicious of email attachments is still 90% of the battle.
If you don't invite the vampire into your house, it can't bite you.
Exactly that.
So, to recap the journey we've been on today, rootkits are the masters of disguise. They don't just break in, they become the administrators. They hide in the deepest parts of your system, the kernel, the bootloader, even the hardware chips themselves. And they lie to your security tools to stay hidden.
And their goal is persistence. They want to stay there watching and stealing for as long as they possibly can.
But by keeping our systems patched, by being smart about user privileges, and by using tools like Secure Boot, we can lock them out.
We can. It requires vigilance, but it's not impossible.
Usually at the end of these deep dives, I feel like I've learned a fun fact. Today, I feel like I've learned a survival skill.
It really is. And if I can leave the listener with one thought to chew on, it's this concept of trust. We rely on our computers for everything: banking, communication, our very identities. But a rootkit challenges the fundamental basis of that relationship. If a piece of malware can modify your system's own tools to say everything is fine, how do you ever truly know your computer is telling you the truth?
That's deep. It really shifts the whole paradigm.
It does. It forces us to move from a model of blind trust to a model of verification. Trust, but verify. And sometimes don't trust at all until you've checked the digital signature yourself.
That is a powerful thought to end on. If you want to verify your own knowledge and dig deeper into the technical details, and we really only scratched the surface today, you need to check out the source of this deep dive.
Absolutely. Go to WeCyberYou.com, They have a ton of educational content, diagrams, and much deeper explanations that break all these complex topics down.
And make sure to follow this channel for more episodes of the WeCyberYou Unlocked podcast. We're going to keep tearing apart these technical topics so you don't have to navigate them alone. Stay safe, check your backups, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.
It's like you cure everyone.